following comments were pulled from the Easy Allies Patreon page among our $10 and above patrons. They represent what our community was playing and talking about in May. May is a prime example of what makes gaming great. I played Ratchet & Clank after it had been out for a month, and then went into Uncharted 4, followed by Doom's release on my birthday. Now with E3 so close, the hype level is through the roof. Hopefully this year's show will come close to making Huber lose it just one more time. May is a sort of in-between games month for me. Just finished Dark Souls 3 and waiting for Overwatch. What I like to do during these times is some retro gaming. Pop an old game like Super Mario RPG or play Mega Man to feel the nostalgia and relive those jolly times. I'm waiting for your VR impressions. I feel like you guys are not at all excited for it. My HTC Vive finally arrived, and while I've been hotly anticipating current VR for years now, it still completely blew my mind. Allow me to leave no room for interpretation. This is unbelievable stuff. Rarely is the word magical appropriate, but in this instance, it is. I can already say, even though the thing just came out, there is honest-to-God life-changing software out there. Still not convinced that I'm being hyperbolic? Let me put it this way. After playing The Lab, I forgive Valve for not making Half-Life 3. The best moment of Uncharted 4 for me was not some story twist or set piece, but a simple random conversation. In one location, there were multiple optional tunnels to go to. I went into one of them and soon met my companion, who went into another. Drake and his companion greeted each other and agreed that these tunnels are looping. There is simply no reason for this dialogue to even exist, but developers had added this bit to make the characters more alive. A pure love to the game, which cannot be denied. I've played Final Fantasies 1, 2, and 4 through 8, with Final Fantasy 7 being my first. I am unbelievably stoked about Final Fantasy 15, so it doesn't make sense to me when other Final Fantasy fans say it's not like a Final Fantasy. I think most of it has to do with the battle system not being turn-based, but that's not a deal-breaker for me. It feels like a Final Fantasy, and this is from someone who has only played the old ones. Maybe I'm missing something, but I'm hyped for the game, regardless of other people's misgivings. For me, despite the releases of Uncharted 4 and Overwatch, May has been characterized as the month in which I worked hard to catch up with Final Fantasy XIV. Having only started in late March, I've since completed all of the Heavensward quests and gotten all of the land and hand classes to level 30. Though the game has too many wonderful aspects to mention here, what has most enraptured me is the community interaction. As fond as my memories are of the final Keeper of the Lake fight, I look back as fondly on the occasions where I bickered in the Free Company chat about which company auction boosts to activate. I recall the only time my whole party performed a harvest dance for Odin. I recall the time that I was running a dungeon with randoms and our tank had to stop playing for 5 minutes because, no joke, their mom had fallen down the stairs. But don't worry, she was fine. These little human moments of community interaction cannot be designed. They can only arise organically, facilitated by the game systems, but performed by the players. They're what distinguishes an MMO from any other type of game. And though the 277 hours I've clocked so far could have been used in many other ways, I can't help but feel it was time well spent. I recently learned that Sean Murray, the managing director at Hello Games, was the lead programmer at Criterion Games when they made Burnout 3, the undisputed champion of arcade racers. Burnout 3 came out during a time when racing games tiptoed through vehicle damage like a teenager sneaking out of the house on a school night. In most racing games back then, you could collide head-on with another car at 200 miles per hour, and you might scratch the fender. Burnout 3 not only let you demolish every car on the road, it encouraged you to do so. It was road rage at its finest. If anybody is going to make a new Road Rash, it should be Hello Games. Learning this about Sean Murray has moved my excitement level for No Man's Sky from I've got goosebumps to hey look, my nipples are really hard. With Elite Dangerous finally releasing planetary landings on Xbox One in the second quarter of 2016, I wonder, will Microsoft position them as a direct competitor to No Man's Sky? Of course, this would mean no PS4 release in the near future, which would be sad, as Elite is probably the best VR game out there, and would be a perfect fit for the PS4K and PlayStation VR. I loved Bloodborne, but never cared for the Souls games. I had a bad experience with DS2. However, after Ben's amazing review of DS3, I felt like I had to give it a shot. 30 hours later, I am still playing and getting good. Thanks for a review that helped me change my perspective on the series and helped me get over my hang-ups to play a great game. This month, I finally beat Dark Souls. I started it several times over the years, never getting much further than the Undead Burg. However, I did it, but we all know it's dangerous to go alone, and I had help. I had the help of our wonderful community here, who encouraged and helped me greatly. I have to shout out to Kristen59, Cueball with Ears, Tall Guy Alec, Aviator Gamer, and mostly Beaten Down Brian for their help and support. I love our community and feel extremely proud to be a part of it. I'm 31 years old, and I've been gaming for as long as I can remember. I feel that I've grown up with gaming, and that gaming has grown up with me. Interestingly, I've also noticed, as I've gotten older, that the more challenging games are the ones that leave a bigger impact on me. Dark Souls, Alien Isolation, and Dirt Rally are 3 huge games for me personally, and they've all challenged me in brilliant ways. I love that the mechanics in the Dark Souls universe allow players to have the freedom to do a variety of things so different from the main purpose of the game. I team up with 3 friends, they were 2 allies, me and other friend invaders, using obscuring rings that grant us invisibility from a certain distance. We waited to ambush others and had the best time fighting the unaware invaders. We made justice that day. No invader will ever feel safe again in the halfway fortress, while the Justice Order lurks around that swamp. May is bound to be a very busy month for me. Between New Game Plus playthroughs of Dark Souls 3 and journeying through Steins Gate on my Vita, I got my plate pretty full. And unfortunately, that's not including the crazy release schedule for May as well. Doom, Overwatch, TMNT, and the enhanced Oxenfree release all sound horribly enticing. I'd also love to get into Uncharted 4, but I think I would get more out of it if I play through the first 3, so that was an easy one to write off for now. Dark Souls 3 is a must for any gamer. Most of my friends play it and give up after the first boss. It is truly a shame. As I get older, it's getting harder for games to intrigue me. I'm not sure if this is due to the centuries of gaming I've done, or I have high expectations, but Dark Souls has always spiked on my radar. Anytime a Souls game comes out, you bet I'm taking a couple days off from work. So please, please, please people, make it past the first boss. And patience is a virtue. Praise the sun. If you, like me, have a Dark Souls 3 shaped hole in your heart after finishing the game, don't sleep on the old hunters. Easily one of the best parts of Bloodborne, and one of the best DLCs ever. I have never played a Souls game. I played through Bloodborne for the first time this year after abandoning it after defeating Rom last year. I love Nioh. I've played through the demo 3 times, only once using swords. There is something about the atmosphere, the music, the setting, and the enemies that just feels so good that I don't think I've gotten from a game for quite some time. Needless to say, I have found something to be hyped about. I love Mega Man Legends. It's my Dark Souls, and it's the only game that connects me to the character of Mega Man. I'm hopeful for a sequel to the amazing Legends games. I find Mighty No. 9 really gross looking and sad. It feels like it has no spirit or soul to it. It just seems like a cash grab. Please, save Mega Man from the moon. He's been up there for 15 years. Dawn of War 3 was just announced today. I'm so excited. I have really fond memories of the original Dawn of War and played the hell out of all the expansions. Dawn of War 2 was great, but I was disappointed it moved away from the base building style of the original. I hope the new game will at least have a mixture of both. I've been a huge RTS fan, but in the last 5 years or so, there hasn't been any true big-budget RTS games besides Company of Heroes 2 and the SC2. I guess most RTS fans have moved on to MOBAs. I miss the days of Command & Conquer, Age of Empires, etc., as SC2 is too much about min-maxing every second and build order pressure to be fun for me anymore. Checked out the trailer for Ace Combat 7. Forgot how much the series meant to me. My girlfriend asked me what my favorite game was, and I'm sure I didn't say Ace Combat 5, even though I should have. Immediately called my best friend, who I've moved away from, and we got to talking about Ace Combat. It was the first game we both liked and obsessed together on. He said he watched a playthrough a week or 2 before I called. Some things never change. My hype level for Overwatch has grown after playing the PS4 beta. I hope this will be a shot in the arm for console first-person shooters. It's great to see a game that encourages teamwork and takes an emphasis off chasing a kill-death ratio. The detail and care put into each character is outstanding. I just finished Final Fantasy VII and I wish I could go back in time and slap my old self. I always thought of the FF series as childish, but boy was I wrong. Now I'm 20 years old with no time to enjoy the rest of the series. System Shock 3 was announced late last year, yet nobody seems to be talking about it. Why is nobody talking about System Shock 3? Hello allies, are any of you guys playing Black Desert Online? I'm pretty sure Ben and Damiani are the only ones that would even consider playing the game. Even if you don't like the game, I think it would be good if you twitched the character creation. It can get pretty crazy in the editor. I've been absorbed with Kerbal Space Program lately with the new update, watching people like Scott Manley and the Beast crew show the many different sides of it. It's made me appreciate a more measured style of gaming, setting goals, missions for myself to accomplish in a day, and then figuring out how to actually do it. Plus exploding things. Lots and lots of exploding things. People can say what they will, but I'm totally digging Paragon. It's going to be a completely free game when it's released, with a level of design well above most other free games on the PS4. Maybe because this is my first MOBA experience, but I spent the $20 to play with a friend in early access, and I've gotten more for that $20 than the last 2 or 3 $60 games I got. I just picked up Fire Emblem Awakening, and the game is blowing me out of the water. I've played it multiple times already, and the tactical gameplay and story elements make the game very hard to put down. While Nintendo has been making more of an advertising push in North America with Fire Emblem, there are still many people who don't know about it because it isn't advertised enough. I feel this is the same case for the Xenoblade series, and I really hope that Nintendo continues to push and create more mature and expansive IPs while still staying true to their core values. Of the JRPG giants, the Persona series has captivated me in ways that other titles don't. Not that I'm belittling any other series or franchise, just that the Persona series has managed to make fictional settings and real-world philosophical debates that to my knowledge no other series has managed to do consistently. Persona 3 and 4 stand out to me as legacy games I will want my children to play, an inheritance of our generation of gaming, with Persona 5 looking to be another addition to that list. Just 2 incredible trailers and the game has totally hyped me up to Huber. P.S. The gameplay has some of the most seamless transitions from exploration to battle, to even the battle results screen. I don't complete games as often as I used to, but when I do, it was something special. That game for me this year so far is Ratchet & Clank. I wish the platforming genre got a little more love in the industry. I was watching Blood's stream of F-Zero X and he made me think of when I last played a couple of years ago. I'm trying to hit a rival out of the track while this metal soundtrack is playing and it got me thinking, this game is badass. Today's Nintendo would never do something like this. Allies, please stream and give some love to the Otogi games. It is something for almost all of you. Great sword gameplay for Huber, responsive From Software controls for Ian, RPG elements for Brad, lots of unlockables for Bloodworth, a fully destructible environment for Brandon, a Japanese princess for Ben, and lots of double jumps for Kyle. It's also easy to see the origins of some of the gameplay mechanics in the Soul series in these amazing games. I can't wait for Brandon to read this out loud. I want to talk about one game, Dishonored. Dishonored has cheap power-ups, a dull world, bad characters, both character design-wise and character building-wise, a bad storyline, and more things I won't mention right now. Why do people say it's a good game, when it's clearly not? I even saw a couple of reviewers say they didn't like it a few years after it was released. But this post isn't entirely about Dishonored. It's about momentum and hype influencing the objectiveness and nuance of video game reviews. I saw the same thing happen with Grand Theft Auto 4, which is still the highest rated PS3 game on Metacritic, even though most reviewers now state it isn't even their favorite GTA game. Seriously, who the hell wants to go bowling? And this is where I reach my point. EZA has the most qualified reviewers in the business. Every time you guys give a game a score, you stick by it and defend it with solid arguments in the review. I am a massive Ratchet & Clank fan, for example, and I loved Huber's review of the remake. It was the honesty I needed. And even though I might not agree with the review sometimes, you guys stick by it and actually say what you think about the game, instead of going with the regular flow and letting yourselves be consumed by hype. EZA is the best in the biz. Don't go changing, guys. Still don't like Dishonored, though. Dishonored deserves a lot more respect than it's given credit for around the EZA community. When we're surrounded by sequels and dull shooters, Dishonored is a new IP that has created a unique, creepy world, which is packed with lore to uncover in the game. It's a stealth game at heart, but not in the same ilk of a Hitman or Metal Gear Solid. The player is given a wide range of weapons and abilities that are a load of fun to use and allow the player to creatively dispatch foes how they like. Plain and simple, Dishonored is fun. Everyone give it a chance. Dishonored 2 is only a few months away. No offense, Huber, I love the guy, but sometimes I think one of the best ways to enjoy video games is avoid the hype. Over the last year, I found a great way to do this. Don't play games on launch day. Wait. Read the reviews, but avoid the spoilers. Then later down the road, once the dust is settled, play the game. For example, just now, I'm playing Batman Arkham Knight. You know what? I absolutely love the game. Gone are the gripes about the bugs and anger over the season pass with little DLC. I'm just enjoying the game, and it feels like an undiscovered treasure. I grew up in a family on a very low budget. Because of this, I could only afford to own one console with a limited number of games. I decided to go with Sony because PlayStation commercials were littering the television at the time. Despite not regretting that decision, I'd missed out on a lot of franchises that I might not have otherwise if I had chosen differently. I'm in my mid-20s and consider myself an avid gamer, yet I've never owned a Nintendo console. I know an absurd amount about series like Zelda, Mario, and Metroid, but I've never played any of them myself. If the NX turns out to be what we're all hoping for, this may be my first chance to experience the world of Hyrule and control the jumping plumber. The world cannot contain my hype. I am ready, Nintendo. Give me your best. I'm working on a YouTube game reviewer video project set to launch in June. As I'm writing the scripts, I'm learning what it means to be a concise game critic. Sometimes the problem you want to highlight in your review the most is the same one you have to leave behind in favor of a much more important point of criticism. The process ain't easy, but after watching YouTube game reviewers for 8 years, I think it's a challenge worth conquering, if only to avoid post-grad depression. I'm sure most of us adults can't devote the frequent multi-hour long video game play sessions we used to as children, so sometimes it's hard to stay focused on a video game. The phenomenon is compounded by having more options than ever in our video game and overall entertainment choices. However, while I was subscribed to GameFly, a video game rental service, I noticed that I was often forcing myself to stay focused on 1 or 2 video games at a time so I could get more value out of my monthly subscription. Currently, I'm all over the place in my video game playing habits, and part of me yearns for those time constraints because I was able to stay invested and focused on a campaign. Perhaps what this means is that the majority of games I'm playing just aren't sucking me in. I can want to love The Witcher 3, but if everything else is distracting me, then perhaps it just isn't for me, and I shouldn't force it. This 33-year-old RPG player has recently started playing Black Ops 3 because it came with my system, and I play every game I own to completion. I humbly bow down to the gamers in multiplayer free-for-all. I had a weird feeling that dominating my friends in GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, and Halo for years would not carry me to online glory, and I was not disappointed. However, do not think that I have given up. I will plant mines, camp from cover, and troll respawns until this loving husband and father of one crushes your whole neon camo wearing, Mountain Dew swilling, no responsibility having online persona into digital hell. I don't know how it works in the US of A, but down here in Brazil, when we were kids, we'd get presents twice a year, on birthdays and Christmas. Those were the only days when we'd had the right to ask, anticipate, and get presents. So you can imagine the anxiety when those dates would come around. Nowadays, strangely enough, that's how I feel about E3. That's the only day every year when I know I'm getting a present from the video games industry, be it a remake of a classic old fantasy, a nice dog-like creature who is also a guardian, or a blue robot that is now smashing with some veterans. However, this year now feels like that one tough year when parents were struggling to make ends meet, and they say, "Hey buddy, you know you really wanted NX and some cool games, but mommy and daddy had a rough year. But hey, listen, we've got you some crappy version of the Zelda game we've been promising you for 2 years, remember? Not cool, Mr. and Mrs. Nintendo. Not cool." To get your comment in next month's video, look for the monthly community post on Patreon at the beginning of each month. Thank you for your support.